dear, what's happening here? They're just hungry, ma'am.
Blood streaked across the marble floor as the front door slammed open. Eleanor Hartwell, billionaire, widow, and owner of the grand estate overlooking the Hudson River, stumbled into her own foyer, her designer heels clicking against silence that didn't belong there. The house had been empty for months. Yet from the living room came the muffled sound of crying, small, gasping, terrified cries, and something else. Rope. She could hear rope scraping wood. Her chest tightened. The air smelled of vanilla candles and fear. "Hello," she called, her voice trembling in a way it hadn't in decades. A child whimpered. "God, no." She pushed forward, each step heavier, her mind clawing through disbelief. And then she saw them. Her young maid, Alana Brooks, only 25, was tied to a chair, wrists bruised and face wet with tears. On the rug beside her were two identical toddlers, maybe 3 years old, twin boys with the same copper curls Eleanor remembered from her son at that age. They clung to Alana's legs, crying. Eleanor's handbag fell to the ground with a heavy thud. "Alana," she whispered. "What happened here?" The girl shook her head frantically, eyes wide with terror. You weren't supposed to come back today, ma'am. Hello, my amazing family and friends. I'm so glad you're here with me again today. If you're ready to dive into another powerful story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me the country or city you're watching from. And guess what? Tomorrow, I've got another story lined up that will leave you just as captivated, so don't miss it. Now let's get started. The wind outside clawed at the windows, making the curtains tremble. Eleanor took a slow step closer, her body shaking, but her voice sharp. "Untie her. Now," she barked into the emptiness, half expecting someone to emerge from the shadows. No one came. It took her only seconds to drop to her knees and tug at the knots. The rope burned her manicured fingers, but she didn't stop until Alana's wrists were free. The young woman gasped, rubbing her arms. Her chest rose and fell fast. "I tried to protect them," she said, her voice cracking. "From who?" Alana swallowed. "They said if I screamed, they'd hurt the boys." "The boys?" Eleanor looked down again, at their wide eyes, trembling lips, those copper curls. They looked nothing like Alana. Nothing at all. "Whose children are these?" Alana hesitated, then whispered, "Yours, ma'am." Eleanor froze. The words tore through the air like thunder. "Mine?" she said, laughing bitterly. "That's impossible. My son is dead." Alana shook her head slowly. "Not his. Yours." For a moment, Eleanor couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The walls felt like they were closing in. "Alana, I don't have." "Please," Alana interrupted, eyes darting toward the door. "We can't talk here. They might come back." "Who?" Eleanor demanded. But before Alana could answer, a sound, tires screeching on gravel, snapped their attention toward the window. Eleanor's instincts kicked in. "Upstairs. Take the boys. Now." Alana didn't argue. She grabbed the twins, one on each hip, and ran up the grand staircase as Eleanor pulled a revolver from the console drawer near the door. Her hands trembled slightly, but her aim didn't. Years of boardroom wars and family betrayals had taught her one thing: always be ready for a fight. The front door burst open. Two men in ski masks stormed inside, shouting. One pointed a gun toward the stairs. Eleanor fired first. The bullet cracked through the air, hitting the wooden banister inches from the man's shoulder. He ducked and cursed, returning fire as plaster exploded from the walls. Alana screamed upstairs, clutching the boys tight. Eleanor dove behind a pillar, heart pounding. "You picked the wrong house," she yelled, firing again. The men hesitated, exchanging quick words before retreating. Their tires screeched away seconds later, leaving shattered glass and a silence thick enough to choke on. Eleanor stood still, panting. The smell of gunpowder filled her nose. Then she heard it, soft sobbing. Alana was at the top of the stairs again, shaking, tears streaking down her cheeks. "They wanted to take them," she whispered. "They said they belonged to you." Eleanor's grip on the gun faltered. "What are you talking about?" "The twins, ma'am. They said their mother was gone, that their grandmother would pay to have them back." Eleanor's heart thudded once, hard. "Their grandmother?" "Yes." The older woman's hand trembled. "That's me." Alana looked at her, guilt in her eyes. "I didn't know how to tell you. I swear. I didn't even know until last week." Eleanor sat down slowly on the steps, the world spinning. "You'd better start explaining, Alana." Right now. The young woman nodded, clutching the boys close. I'll tell you everything, she whispered. But you're not going to like what you hear. Hours later, the police were gone, and the mansion was quiet again. The boys slept curled against each other on the couch, exhaustion softening their faces. Eleanor sat across from Alana in the dim light of the library, her face pale, her eyes red. Start from the beginning. Alana exhaled. When I got the job here, I thought it was just cleaning. Just another house. But then, your son's name came up. Eleanor flinched. Don't say his name. I have to. He's the father. Eleanor's eyes snapped up. That's not possible. Alana's voice broke. He came to the shelter where I was working last year. Said he was trying to make amends, trying to start over. We fell in love, Eleanor. I didn't even know who he really was until I saw his picture on your mantel. Silence filled the space between them. The fire crackled softly. Eleanor leaned back, her eyes distant. You're saying my son, after everything he did, after the drugs, the money, the lies, he found you? Alana nodded. He changed. He wanted to do better. But before he could, she couldn't finish. Eleanor closed her eyes. The accident. Yes, Alana whispered. He didn't know I was pregnant. And when the boys were born, I had nowhere to go. So when I saw the listing for a maid position at the Hartwell estate, I applied. I didn't even realize it was you until I walked through the door. Eleanor's eyes glistened. You were raising my grandsons under my own roof. Alana's chin trembled. I didn't plan it that way. I just wanted them safe. I thought, if they grew up near you, maybe they'd have a chance. Eleanor's throat ached. The walls of her carefully curated life, her businesses, her charities, her luxury, suddenly felt hollow. Two small cries echoed from the couch. The twins stirred. Eleanor stood and walked toward them. She crouched beside their small, sleeping bodies, touching one of their curls with trembling fingers. They look like him, she whispered. Alana watched from the doorway. They're good boys. They just need someone to love them. Eleanor's eyes lifted slowly to meet hers. Maybe we both do. What would you have done if you walked into your home and found something like this waiting? Let me know in the comments below. The grandfather clock struck midnight, the sound echoing through the mansion like a heartbeat. Eleanor sat alone in the library, the storm outside finally giving way to a drizzle that streaked down the tall windows. Her thoughts refused to settle. She could still see the fear on Alana's face when she'd found her, crouched in the pantry, clutching the twins as if the walls themselves might collapse. The police had said it was likely an attempted burglary, maybe a random target. But deep down, Eleanor knew better. This was no coincidence. The Hartwell name carried a curse. Too much money, too many enemies, too many secrets. From the couch, a faint sound broke through her thoughts, a soft whimper. Eleanor rose, crossed the room quietly, and found one of the twins awake. The boy blinked up at her with sleepy blue eyes that looked achingly familiar. His curls framed his face, and his tiny hand reached toward her as if he already knew her. Hey there, she whispered. You should be asleep. The boy didn't answer, just stared at her in that unguarded, innocent way children do. And for a moment, the ache in her chest softened. Behind her, Alana's voice came quietly. He doesn't like to sleep when it rains. It reminds him of the night. She stopped herself. The night what? Eleanor asked gently. Alana hesitated, her eyes falling to the floor. The night your son died. It was storming that night too. Eleanor's breath caught. You were there? I was supposed to meet him, Alana said softly. He called, said he wanted to talk about the future, about us. But he never made it. The silence that followed felt heavy, filled with everything neither of them knew how to say. Eleanor turned back toward the fire. I told him to leave town that week. I told him I couldn't watch him destroy himself anymore. I thought I was saving him. Alana's voice broke. He thought you'd given up on him. The older woman's hand trembled slightly. Maybe I did. Maybe I was too proud. She looked at Alana then, really looked at her, the young woman's eyes still wet from tears, her hands holding one twin while the other slept nearby. She wasn't just some maid. She was family. But the truth was messy, dangerous even. Whoever those men were tonight, they'd known about the boys. That meant someone else knew too. Someone who wanted them gone or hidden. Eleanor's phone buzzed on the table. She picked it up. The message had no name, only a number. You shouldn't have come back early. The screen dimmed again, leaving Eleanor staring at her reflection in the glass. Pale, shaken, furious. What is it? Alana asked, noticing her expression. Nothing. Eleanor lied, slipping the phone into her pocket. You and the boys can stay here tonight. I'll have one of the security teams bring supplies in the morning. I don't want to be a burden. You're not. Eleanor interrupted. You're part of this now. The words surprised her even as she said them. But they felt right. She took a slow breath. You said they knew the twins belonged to me. How? Alana hesitated again, then pulled a folded envelope from her pocket. This came in the mail 3 days ago. No return address. Just this. Eleanor took it. Inside was a photo, the twins in the park, Alana pushing them on the swings. And in the corner, circled in red ink, was a reflection from the park bench. Eleanor's driver. Her jaw tightened. Someone's been watching us. Alana's voice trembled. What do they want? Eleanor stared at the photo for a long moment. Money, maybe. Or power. But there's something else. They said their grandmother would pay. Whoever sent this doesn't know. I didn't even know these children existed until tonight. The weight of that truth hung heavy between them. She walked toward the twins again, lowering herself beside the couch. Their tiny chests rose and fell in rhythm, unaware of the storm they'd brought into her world. They're safe now, Eleanor whispered, mostly to herself. I won't let anyone take them. Alana watched her closely. Why are you being so kind to me, after everything? Eleanor met her gaze. Because I see him in you. The way you protect them, the way you fight for them. My son used to be like that, before the world broke him. Tears slipped down Alana's cheeks. I wish he could see them. He would have loved them so much. Eleanor's voice softened. Maybe he still can, in the way we raised them. The young woman smiled weakly, clutching the boys closer. You mean that? I don't say things I don't mean. They sat there quietly for a long time, the firelight dancing across their faces. The air felt less like fear now, and more like something tentative and fragile. Trust, maybe. But somewhere deep down, Eleanor knew peace never lasted long in her world. Her phone buzzed again. Same number. Same blank tone. You can't hide blood. Eleanor's grip on the phone tightened until her knuckles whitened. Whoever this was, they weren't finished. She rose, her voice low and steady. Get some rest, Alana. Lock your door and keep the boys close. Alana nodded, eyes wide. What are you going to do? Eleanor looked toward the window, where rain streaked down the glass like tears. I'm going to find out who sent that message. Outside, the night swallowed the estate. Somewhere out beyond the gates, a car sat idling on the hill. Inside it, a shadowed figure watched the lights flicker in the mansion, phone glowing in his hand. He typed a single message before driving off into the rain. She doesn't know the truth yet. The fire crackled one last time as Eleanor stood in the doorway, staring down the long corridor toward the guest wing where Alana and the boys now slept. Something inside her shifted. The sharp edge of loneliness she'd carried for years dulled by an unexpected sense of purpose. She didn't know what the coming days would bring, but for the first time in a long while, she wasn't facing them alone. By morning, the mansion felt like a stranger's home. The staff arrived in uneasy silence, eyes darting toward the broken glass and bullet holes Eleanor hadn't yet ordered repaired. No one asked questions. They never did. Eleanor moved through the halls with her usual grace, silk robe, hair pinned, a porcelain cup of black coffee in hand. But beneath that polished surface, every nerve was alert. She'd barely slept. Her mind had replayed the night's events over and over. Alana's trembling hands, the twins' frightened cries, that final text. You can't hide blood. She stared down at her phone again. No new messages. Just the same number, untraceable. At the kitchen table, Alana was spooning oatmeal into 2 bowls for the twins. They sat on high chairs, messy-haired and bright-eyed, their giggles cutting through the tension like sunlight. One boy smeared oatmeal across his cheek, while the other pointed and laughed. The sound made something in Eleanor's chest ache, a part of her she'd long buried. You didn't have to cook, she said gently as she entered. Alana startled a little. Morning, ma'am. Sorry, I just wanted them fed before you started your day. Eleanor, the older woman corrected softly. Please. After last night, I think formality feels wrong. Alana hesitated, then nodded. Morning, Eleanor. The boys looked up, curious. One of them, the smaller twin, reached his arms toward her. Up. Eleanor froze, unsure how to react. It had been decades since anyone that small had reached for her like that. Alana smiled faintly. That's Noah. He's braver than his brother. She lifted the boy from his chair and handed him over. Eleanor hesitated, then held him close. His tiny fingers clutched her silk sleeve. He smelled like oatmeal and baby shampoo. Noah giggled. Eleanor couldn't help but smile. A real, unguarded one that made Alana's eyes soften. "He likes you," Alana said. Eleanor's voice was barely a whisper. "I think I like him too." The sound of laughter filled the kitchen for the first time in years. But the moment was fragile. As Eleanor set Noah back in his chair, she noticed the mail piled on the counter. On top was a white envelope, no return address again. Her hand stilled. "Alana," she said quietly, "did you see who dropped this off?" Alana shook her head. "It wasn't there when I came down." Eleanor tore it open carefully. Inside was a single photo, grainy, black and white, taken from a distance. It showed Alana carrying both twins through a grocery parking lot. Across the image, in red marker, were 3 words. "You can't run forever." Eleanor's jaw tightened. She folded the photo, slipped it into her robe pocket, and forced her voice calm. "Nothing important. Just junk mail." But Alana wasn't fooled. "You're lying." Eleanor looked at her, really looked. "You've been through enough. Let me handle this." "I'm not hiding anymore," Alana said firmly. "If someone's after the boys, it's my fight too." The steel in her voice surprised Eleanor. She wasn't the fragile girl she'd first met. There was fire there, raw and untamed. And maybe, Eleanor thought, she needed that fire. By afternoon, Eleanor was in her private office, a room lined with glass cases and old photographs. She sat behind her mahogany desk, scrolling through her laptop. Her private investigator, someone she'd trusted for years, was on a secure video call. "Find anything?" she asked. The man on the screen, gray-haired and sharp-eyed, leaned forward. "The number's a ghost. It's bouncing through 3 different servers. But the car you mentioned, the one parked outside your property? We got a partial plate. And it belongs to someone in your late husband's circle. Name ring a bell?" "Grant Dorsey." Eleanor's stomach turned. "He handled my husband's offshore accounts." "Not anymore. He went bankrupt 3 months ago. Word is, he's been trying to get back what he lost. Fast." She closed her eyes. "Money. It always came back to money." "What about Alana?" she asked quietly. "What about her? Make sure she's clean. No past trouble, no records, nothing that could put those kids in danger." He nodded. "On it." She ended the call and sat back, exhaling. The storm was only just beginning. That night, the mansion was quieter. Alana had put the twins to bed upstairs, humming softly to them. Her voice drifted through the hallways, warm, tender, carrying an ache that made Eleanor pause outside the nursery door. She leaned against the frame, watching unseen as Alana tucked the boys under their blanket. The younger woman kissed their foreheads, whispering something Eleanor couldn't hear. For a brief second, the billionaire felt like an intruder in her own home, watching a kind of love she'd once known and lost. Alana turned and saw her then. "Sorry," she murmured, wiping her eyes. "They get scared of thunder." Eleanor nodded. "You're good with them." "I've had to be." A silence settled between them, not cold but fragile, like glass. Eleanor finally spoke. "I should have known about them. About you. I thought my son's death was the end of my family. But maybe it wasn't." Alana's eyes glistened. "You couldn't have known. I could have cared enough to ask." The words caught even her off guard. They sounded like a confession. Alana took a small step closer. "You're trying now? That's what matters." The older woman smiled faintly. "You sound like him when you say things like that." Alana's lips trembled. "Then I hope that's a good thing." "It is," Eleanor whispered. "It really is." For a moment, it felt like a bridge was forming between them. 2 women from different worlds, bound by grief and the tiny lives sleeping just feet away. But bridges could burn as easily as they were built. Downstairs, Eleanor's phone buzzed again on the table. She turned, frowning. "I'll be right back." Alana nodded, unaware of the dread curling in Eleanor's stomach. The message was different this time. Not a threat, not even words. Just a photo. A close-up of the twins sleeping peacefully in their beds, taken moments ago from outside the window. Eleanor's heart stopped. She ran to the alarm panel, checking the cameras, all dark. Someone had disabled the feeds. "Alana," she shouted, bolting for the stairs. The younger woman appeared in the hall, startled. "What happened?" Eleanor grabbed her arm. "Take the boys. Go to the safe room. Now." "But..." Now, Alana. The fear in her voice cut through any hesitation. Alana sprinted to the nursery, scooping the twins into her arms as the security lights began flashing red. Eleanor pressed the hidden panel by the bookshelf, revealing a steel-lined door. The room beyond glowed with dim light and silent air. "Get in," she ordered. Alana hesitated, clutching the twins. "What about you? I'll handle this." "No," Alana said fiercely. "We stay together." Their eyes met. Two women, different ages, different worlds, united in that one raw, human moment of fear and love. And then, somewhere deep in the house, a door slammed. They both turned. The sound of footsteps echoed through the marble halls. Whoever was coming, they weren't alone. The footsteps echoed like a metronome of dread. Eleanor moved first, motioning for Alana to stay quiet. She took a flashlight from the wall and switched it off, relying on the thin silver of moonlight bleeding through the windows. "Stay low," she whispered. Alana crouched behind her, clutching the twins close. Their soft breathing was the only sound between the rising tension. A shadow moved in the hallway. Eleanor raised the small revolver she kept tucked into her robe pocket. "Who's there?" she called, voice steady though her heart raced. The shadow froze. Then, a voice, low, male, and strained. "Mrs. Hartwell? Don't shoot. It's me, Darren." Eleanor blinked. Her groundskeeper. A loyal employee for nearly 15 years. She lowered the gun slightly, but didn't relax. "Darren, what are you doing in my house at this hour?" He stepped into the light, sweat shining on his temple. "I saw movement by the east gate. Thought I'd check it out. Then the lights cut off. I came to make sure you were all right." Alana's grip on the twins tightened. Something about his tone didn't sound right. Eleanor frowned. "The cameras are disabled." "Yeah," Darren said, shifting. "That's odd. Must have been a power surge." Her eyes narrowed. The generators didn't trip. For a beat, they stared at each other. Two people who'd known each other too long for lies. "Who are you working for?" she asked quietly. He hesitated. "Just long enough." Alana gasped. Eleanor raised the gun again. "Answer me." "I'm sorry," Darren said, voice cracking. "I didn't want it to go this far. They said no one would get hurt. They just wanted the boys." The world seemed to tilt. Alana's voice trembled with fury. "You tried to sell children?" "I needed the money," he shouted, desperate. "I lost everything last year. They came to me, said they'd pay me to keep an eye on her, to tell them when the kids were alone. I didn't know who they really were." Eleanor stepped closer, gun unwavering. "And who were they?" He swallowed hard. "A man named Grant Dorsey." The name sent a chill through her veins. Eleanor's voice dropped. "You're going to call him. Right now? Tell him the deal's off." Darren shook his head. "You don't understand." She cocked the gun. "Try me." He fumbled with his phone, hands shaking. As he typed, a faint buzz echoed from the back pocket of Eleanor's robe. She froze, pulling out her own phone. Another message, from the same unknown number. "Too late. We're already inside." Her eyes widened. "Alana." The window behind them shattered. A man in black crashed through the glass, knocking Eleanor backward. The gun skidded across the floor. Darren yelled, diving out of the way. Alana screamed, shielding the twins as another masked figure climbed through the broken frame. Eleanor scrambled to her feet, glass cutting into her palms. She grabbed a fireplace poker and swung. The first man ducked but stumbled back, surprised by her strength. "Run," she shouted. Alana sprinted toward the hidden panel, pressing her hand against the sensor. The safe room door slid open. She ducked inside, clutching the boys, as Eleanor fought to keep the attackers at bay. Darren bolted toward the kitchen, not to help, but to escape. Eleanor swung again, catching the intruder's shoulder. He grunted, staggering, but another blow knocked her down. She hit the floor hard, pain flashing white through her ribs. The second man grabbed her arm. "Where are they?" he hissed. "Gone," she spat. He raised his fist, but before he could strike, a deafening bang shook the air. The men froze. Security sirens wailed across the property. Red lights flickered through the broken window, police floodlights, tearing through the dark. The intruders looked at each other, cursed, and bolted the way they came. Eleanor lay still, breathing hard, the poker clutched in her trembling hand. Moments later, Alana rushed back, eyes wide. "Are you okay?" Eleanor managed a shaky nod. "I've been worse." Alana knelt beside her, helping her sit up. The twins peeked out from behind the safe room door, crying softly. Eleanor looked at them, at the small, terrified faces, and something inside her hardened. They won't touch this family again. Alana's voice wavered. What are you going to do? Eleanor met her gaze, a new fire in her eyes. Whatever it takes. The police flooded the mansion minutes later. Darren was found hiding in the cellar and taken away in handcuffs, shouting apologies that no one wanted to hear. Eleanor watched from the balcony as the lights flashed red and blue across the rain-soaked lawn. Her silk robe was torn, her palms bleeding, but her eyes were steady, sharp. Beside her, Alana stood holding one twin in each arm. They said your husband's partner was behind this. Yes, Eleanor said. And if that's true, this isn't about money anymore. What is it about? Eleanor turned to face her. Legacy. When the officers finally left, the house fell quiet again. The clock chimed once, marking 3 in the morning. Alana touched Eleanor's arm softly. You need rest. Eleanor looked down at her hand. Small, warm, steady. For the first time, she didn't pull away. Instead, she whispered, You and those boys saved me tonight. Alana smiled faintly. No, Eleanor. You saved us. They stood there, 2 women in the wreckage of a storm, their hearts still beating in sync with the rain outside. No longer strangers, but something closer. Something like family. The following morning, the mansion was a hive of whispers. The police had left before sunrise, but their presence still lingered like cold breath against the marble walls. A single yellow evidence marker sat forgotten beside the back door. Eleanor watched it from the kitchen, her coffee untouched, her mind spinning faster than the clock above the stove. Alana came down the hallway quietly, wearing one of Eleanor's oversized sweaters, her hair tied up in a loose bun. She paused when she saw the older woman, uncertain if she was intruding. The twins were in the den, watching cartoons, their laughter cutting through the tension like a distant melody. You didn't sleep, Alana said softly. Eleanor didn't look up. Neither did you. Alana took the chair across from her. The silence between them was thick but fragile, like glass warmed by sunlight. They think whoever came here wasn't after money, Alana said. They didn't touch the safes. They didn't even open the drawers. Eleanor finally looked at her. Then what were they after? Alana hesitated. You. Eleanor's chest tightened. Me? You're a billionaire, ma'am. People hate that. They want to make you afraid, or humiliate you, or... Don't call me ma'am, Eleanor interrupted. Not after what happened. My name's Eleanor. Alana blinked, surprised. Okay, Eleanor. That small act of intimacy changed something between them. The air softened. Eleanor took a sip of her now-cold coffee and sighed. Dorsey called me at dawn, she said. Said he's handling the public side. That's code for burying the truth. Do you trust him? Eleanor thought for a long moment. I used to. He's been my lawyer for 20 years. But now, no? Something's off. He's hiding something from me. Alana folded her hands together, nervous. You think he's connected to what happened? Eleanor met her eyes. I think he knows who is. Outside, a delivery van rolled past the gate, its tires crunching against the gravel. Alana flinched at the sound. Eleanor noticed. You're safe here, Eleanor said gently. I've increased security. New locks. Cameras. Guards on rotation. Alana shook her head. That's not what scares me. What scares me is that this isn't about you. It's about me. Eleanor frowned. What do you mean? Alana hesitated, then looked down. There's something I haven't told you. About my last job. Eleanor's heart slowed. Go on. I worked for a man in Savannah. A private investor. He was charming at first. Said I reminded him of his daughter. Then he started asking questions about my family, where I lived, who I talked to. When I tried to quit, he sent people after me. I ran. Eleanor leaned forward, her pulse quickening. And you think he found you here? I think someone told him where I was, Alana whispered. Eleanor's jaw clenched. Dorsey. Neither of them said it aloud, but both knew that name carried the weight of betrayal. A knock on the door made them both jump. Eleanor stood quickly, motioning for Alana to stay put. She opened the door to reveal Officer Grant, the same detective who had responded last night. His eyes were heavy with fatigue. Morning, Miss Carrington, he said. Mind if I come in? Of course. He stepped into the foyer, scanning the room like a man stepping into a confession. We found footprints near the service gate. 2 sets, one large, one smaller. No match in the system. But there was a phone dropped in the grass. We pulled one text thread before it locked up. He handed Eleanor a folded printout. She read the words and froze. The girl's inside. Wait until she's alone. Her stomach dropped. Alana's story suddenly wasn't just paranoia. Grant's expression darkened. Does that mean anything to you? Eleanor shook her head, then glanced toward the kitchen where Alana sat waiting. It means everything. Grant followed her gaze. That the girl? Yes, Eleanor said quietly. And she's not just some maid. Alana stood, sensing the shift in tone. The detective looked at her with something like pity. We'll keep a car outside the gate. You should both avoid going anywhere alone. After he left, Eleanor closed the door slowly and leaned her forehead against it. The house seemed too quiet again, the silence pressing in from every corner. Alana spoke behind her. You don't have to protect me, Eleanor. I can leave. Eleanor turned around sharply. You're not leaving. Whoever's behind this wants to break you, and I won't let them. You're staying right here. With me. Alana's eyes shimmered, unsure whether to cry or smile. Why would you do that for me? Because, Eleanor said, voice trembling. Somewhere along the way, you became the only person in this house who tells me the truth. For the first time since the chaos began, Alana smiled. It was faint, small, but real. Outside, the morning sun climbed higher over the estate, casting light through the glass atrium and warming the kitchen floor. Inside, two women from different worlds, one wealthy and weary, the other young and haunted, found a fragile peace. But the phone message burned in Eleanor's hand like a warning. The girl's inside. She looked toward Alana and the twins in the next room, laughing softly at a cartoon. A thought struck her like lightning. If someone had been watching Alana, then maybe they weren't just after her. Maybe they already knew what the twins meant to her. For the next 48 hours, the mansion became its own world, sealed off, silent, and suspiciously calm. The iron gates remained locked, guards patrolled the grounds, and every door was fitted with new security codes that only Eleanor and Alana knew. But safety didn't feel safe. It felt like a cage. The twins, still too young to understand what had happened, ran through the echoing halls, their laughter chasing away the heavy silence that filled every other room. Alana followed them everywhere, reading them stories in the study, braiding their hair, pretending she wasn't watching every window. Eleanor spent most of her time in her office, pretending to work, but really listening. The sound of Alana's voice drifting through the halls had begun to anchor her in ways she didn't expect. That night, after the twins were asleep, Eleanor found herself standing in the kitchen doorway, watching Alana clean the counter. You don't have to do that, Eleanor said softly. Alana jumped slightly, clutching the rag. Habit. I clean when I'm nervous. Eleanor smiled faintly. Then this house must be spotless by now. They both laughed, a small sound, awkward but sincere. Eleanor stepped inside, leaning against the counter. I keep thinking about what you said. About that man in Savannah. Do you think he's still looking for you? Alana hesitated. He doesn't let go of things that belong to him. The way she said it made Eleanor's stomach twist. You don't belong to anyone, Alana. Alana looked up. That's easy for someone like you to say. Eleanor met her gaze. Someone like me? You have power, money, lawyers. People listen when you're afraid. Me? When I'm afraid, I get told to calm down or go back where I came from. The silence that followed was heavy, but not angry. It was the kind of silence that forces two people to see each other fully for the first time. Eleanor lowered her eyes. You're right. Alana blinked, startled. What? You're right. I've lived in my own glass tower for so long. I stopped noticing who was holding it up. People like you have always seen the world more clearly than people like me. Alana's voice softened. That's not true. It is, Eleanor said. But maybe that's why we ended up here. Maybe I was supposed to see what you see. For a long moment, neither spoke. The refrigerator hummed softly in the background. Finally, Alana asked, do you ever get lonely in all this space? Eleanor gave a small laugh that didn't sound happy. Every day. Alana nodded slowly, her eyes drifting to the massive windows. Then maybe it's not such a bad thing that we're stuck here together. Just then, the security monitor flickered. Eleanor turned to look. One of the exterior cameras showed movement near the guest house. She grabbed the tablet from the counter, zooming in. A figure, too distant to identify, but standing just beyond the light. Watching. Eleanor's throat tightened. Someone's out there. Alana moved beside her, squinting at the screen. That's not one of the guards. Look, he's wearing a hood. Eleanor grabbed her phone and called the security team. Moments later, two men ran across the lawn toward the guest house. The camera feed shook, then went dark. Signal cut, Eleanor whispered. They waited in silence until the guards' voices crackled through the intercom. Nothing, ma'am. Whoever it was, they're gone. Eleanor exhaled shakily. Alana's hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the counter. You see, Alana said. He found me again. Eleanor turned to her, fierce now. No. He found us. That means he made a mistake. What mistake? He thinks you're alone. He doesn't know who's standing beside you now. Something in her tone, protective, almost maternal, made Alana's eyes glisten. You'd really stand with me against him? Eleanor stepped closer. I already am. For the first time, Alana didn't look like the frightened maid who had been running from her past. She looked like a woman who believed she might finally stop running. The twins stirred upstairs, murmuring in their sleep. Alana started to go check on them, but Eleanor stopped her gently. Let them rest. You need to rest too. Alana hesitated, then nodded. Will you? Eleanor smiled faintly. Eventually, when Alana left the kitchen, Eleanor stood alone again, staring at the dark monitor. The reflection of her face overlapped with the faint, frozen image of the hooded figure. Two lives colliding, bound by danger and something deeper she couldn't name yet. Somewhere in the house, a floorboard creaked. Eleanor turned her head sharply, heart racing. Nothing, just the echo of old wood. Still, she whispered into the silence. If you want her, you'll have to come through me. Outside, the lights on the lawn flickered once, then steadied, like a pulse finding rhythm again. And for the first time in years, Eleanor Carrington didn't feel like she was standing alone in her own home. By the third morning, sunlight no longer felt warm inside the mansion. It slipped through the glass ceilings like memory instead of light. Eleanor sat in the study surrounded by open folders and faded photographs. She hadn't slept. The more she dug into Alana's story, the more the puzzle refused to make sense. There was a name that kept returning in the background checks and financial ledgers, Gareth Lang. He was an investor from Savannah, connected to a trust Eleanor's late husband had set up decades ago. She whispered the name under her breath, and it tasted like dust. She called Dorsey. He didn't pick up. When she heard footsteps, she looked up. Alana stood in the doorway, wearing a gray cardigan, holding a mug of tea that she'd clearly made for both of them. You've been up all night again, Alana said. Eleanor gestured toward the folders. I found something. Your old employer, Lang, he was one of my husband's clients. His company handled offshore real estate for our foundation. Alana froze. Your husband? Yes, Eleanor said softly. He died 5 years ago. But apparently, his lawyer, my lawyer, kept working with Lang. That means Dorsey's been lying to me for a long time. Alana's brow furrowed. Do you think your husband knew? Eleanor shook her head slowly. He wasn't a cruel man, just careless. He trusted the wrong people. And now his carelessness is hunting you. Alana sank into a chair. So you think Lang's using Dorsey to get to me? I think Lang's obsessed with control, Eleanor replied. He probably couldn't stand the idea of you walking away. Alana rubbed her temples. He always said I didn't appreciate what he gave me. I cleaned his house, Eleanor. That's all I ever did. I never understood what he meant by that. Eleanor's gaze softened. Some men don't see women as people. They see them as possessions that slipped out of their grasp. A long silence stretched between them, not empty, but heavy with mutual understanding. Then Eleanor leaned forward, lowering her voice. There's something else. She pulled out an old photo from a charity event. A younger Alana, barely a teenager, standing in the background of the crowd, serving drinks. In the foreground, Eleanor's husband smiled beside Gareth Lang. Alana stared at the picture, her face draining of color. That was my first job. I didn't even know who they were. Eleanor swallowed. It means he's known you longer than you realized. Why me? Alana whispered. Why would a man like that care about some kid from Macon? Eleanor looked at her for a long time before answering. Because of what your mother did. Alana blinked. My mother? Eleanor nodded slowly. I didn't know her well, but I remember her. She worked at one of my husband's charities, the women's shelter we funded downtown. Her name was Denise, wasn't it? Alana's lips parted. You knew my mom? Yes. She was one of the strongest women I'd ever met. But one night, she came to me crying. She said a donor had been harassing her. I asked who. she said Gareth Lang. Alana stood abruptly, the mug slipping from her hand and shattering against the rug. Eleanor continued, her voice shaking now. I told her I'd handle it. But the next week, she disappeared. They said she moved away. I believed them. Alana's breath came fast and shallow. She didn't move away. She died a month later. They called it an accident, but I never believed that. Eleanor pressed her hand to her chest. Oh God. For the first time, Alana looked at her not as an employer or protector, but as a link to everything she'd lost. So this man destroyed both our lives, Alana said quietly. Eleanor nodded. And now he's trying to erase what's left of yours. But this time, he's not going to win. Alana's voice trembled. Why are you helping me? You could walk away. You could let him handle it. Eleanor stepped closer. Because when your mother came to me, I promised her I'd make things right. I failed her. I won't fail you. The room went still except for the sound of the twins playing faintly in the next room. Laughter that felt almost sacred in the middle of all that revelation. Alana's shoulders shook as she whispered. She used to tell me rich people didn't notice the pain they caused. She said they moved through life like ghosts. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Then I suppose it's time I became human again. Outside, thunder rolled low across the horizon, even though the forecast promised clear skies. It felt like a storm building from years of buried guilt and fear, a reckoning long overdue. Alana wiped her eyes, her voice steadier now. If Lang comes for me again, he'll have to face both of us. Eleanor gave a faint, proud smile. No, Alana. He'll have to face the truth. They stood together in the quiet study, two women from different worlds now bound by the same wound, the same man, and the same rising fire to end what had started long before either of them understood it. Eleanor turned back to her desk, sliding a small silver flash drive across the wood. Everything Dorsey's been hiding is on here. Financial transfers, names, offshore accounts. Enough to expose Lang and his entire network. Alana stared at it. Then why haven't you turned it in? Eleanor met her eyes. Because if I do, he'll destroy you before the truth ever sees daylight. We need proof that can't be erased. And how do we get that? Eleanor smiled faintly. By walking straight into the lion's den. Alana exhaled sharply. You're serious? Completely. The older woman's reflection caught the light from the window, strong, lined, unyielding. For the first time, Alana saw not just a billionaire, but a survivor. What would your husband think of this? Alana asked softly. Eleanor's smile turned bittersweet. He'd say I'm finally living. The thunder outside rumbled again, closer this time, like the world itself was leaning in to listen. Rain started falling before dawn, light at first, then steady, a slow rhythm tapping against the tall glass windows that wrapped around the mansion's atrium. Eleanor and Alana sat together in the kitchen, the only light coming from the small lamp above the stove. Between them lay a half-finished puzzle and two untouched cups of tea. Neither spoke for a while. The quiet between them was no longer uncomfortable. It was necessary, like breathing after grief. Eleanor finally broke the silence. You remind me of her, she said. Alana looked up. My mother? Yes, Eleanor said softly. She had the same fire in her eyes. The same way of folding her arms when she was thinking. Alana smiled faintly. She used to say I got that from her. I never believed her until now. Eleanor reached for her tea, her fingers trembling slightly. I owe her more than I can ever repay. Alana shook her head. You don't owe her anything. You're helping me. That's enough. Eleanor's voice softened. No, it's not. She paused, then looked up. I let her walk out of my office that night. I told myself it was too risky to accuse a donor, that it would destroy the foundation. And then she vanished. I've carried that guilt for 20 years. Alana didn't say anything at first. She just reached across the table, covering Eleanor's hand with her own. You can't change what happened, she said gently. But you can change what happens next. Eleanor squeezed her hand back, her eyes shining with tears. That's exactly what I intend to do. Outside, the rain thickened, blurring the city lights in the distance. By midday, the house felt alive again. The twins chased each other down the hallways, their laughter echoing through the high ceilings. Alana braided their hair in the living room while Eleanor sat across from them, typing furiously on her laptop. What are you working on? Alana asked. A letter, Eleanor said. For the board of my foundation. If something happens to me, they'll have everything. The files, The proof, the names. Alana frowned. Don't say that. I'm just being careful. No. Alana said firmly, standing. You're being scared. You're not going anywhere, Eleanor. Eleanor looked up at her, surprised by the fierceness in her voice. I've been running my whole life, Alana continued. Running from bills, from people, from memories. But not anymore. If Lang wants a fight, then we fight together. Eleanor nodded slowly, a tear slipping down her cheek. You sound just like your mother. Later that afternoon, they sat together in Eleanor's study going through the files. The storm outside raged harder now, thunder rolling like distant drums. Alana scrolled through transaction logs while Eleanor read emails aloud. Lang's company funneled millions through shell charities. All signed by Dorsey. Every date lines up with foundation funds. Alana muttered, he used your husband's name as cover. Eleanor leaned back in her chair. And I let him. God help me. I signed half those approvals without reading them. Alana closed the laptop and looked at her. Then you get to decide what that means now. You can spend the rest of your life buried in guilt, or you can stand up and be the woman your husband wanted you to be. Eleanor smiled faintly. Who knew my maid would end up being my conscience? Alana smiled back. Who knew my boss would end up being my friend? The words lingered between them. In that moment, their worlds, wealth and struggle, privilege and survival, didn't feel so far apart. That evening, as the twins slept and the storm faded, Alana found Eleanor in the music room, sitting at the old grand piano. Her hands hovered over the keys, but didn't play. I didn't know you played, Alana said. Eleanor looked up. I used to. My husband loved the sound. Play something, Alana said softly. Eleanor hesitated, then pressed a few tentative keys. The melody was fragile, uncertain, but beautiful, a lullaby written for no one and everyone at once. Alana leaned against the doorframe, listening with her eyes closed. When the song ended, the silence was full and warm. Why did you stop playing? Alana asked. Eleanor looked at her hands. Because I thought I'd forgotten who I was. Alana smiled gently. You just remembered. Eleanor looked up at her then, and for the first time since her husband's death, she smiled, truly smiled. Hours later, they both sat in the library, the glow of the fireplace soft against their faces. Eleanor sipped wine, Alana hot cocoa. Do you think we'll ever be free of him? Alana asked quietly. Eleanor looked into the flames. Freedom isn't given, Alana. It's taken. And tomorrow, we start taking it back. There was resolve in her tone now, the sound of a woman reclaiming her power, and of another finding hers for the first time. Alana watched the firelight flicker in Eleanor's eyes and said softly, You know, if you weren't 60 and rich, I think we'd be dangerous together. Eleanor laughed, a bright, clear sound that startled them both. Who says we aren't? They sat there laughing, two women who had lost everything and somehow found family in the wreckage. Outside, the rain stopped. Inside, the world began to change. Morning broke gray and heavy. The storm had passed, but the air inside the mansion felt colder than it should have. Eleanor was already awake, pacing the study while the twins played quietly upstairs. Alana was in the kitchen, gathering the folders and drives they'd organized the night before. Today was the day they were supposed to send the evidence to the press, the day everything would finally come into the light. But Eleanor's phone buzzed before she could take another step. It was Dorsey. Her pulse jumped. She stared at the screen for a long time before answering. Eleanor, his voice came, low and smooth. We need to talk. In person. I have nothing left to say to you, she said sharply. Yes, you do, he replied. Because you've been digging into things that could destroy people you care about. Her jaw tightened. You mean people like you? No, Dorsey said, his tone shifting. I mean people like that young woman living in your house. Eleanor's blood ran cold. What do you know about her? I know more than you think, Dorsey said. And if you release those files, you'll ruin her life before you ever touch mine. She hung up, her hands trembling. Across the house, Alana came in carrying the flash drive. Everything's ready. Once we upload this. Eleanor cut her off. Wait. Alana froze. What's wrong? Eleanor took a slow breath, choosing her words carefully. I just got off the phone with Dorsey. He says, there's something in these files that connects back to you. Alana's brow furrowed. That's impossible. Eleanor stepped closer. Is it? Alana hesitated, just long enough for Eleanor to see something flicker in her eyes. Guilt. Or fear. Maybe both. Alana, Eleanor said softly. What aren't you telling me? Alana looked away. You wouldn't understand. Try me. Alana set the flash drive down on the counter and wrapped her arms around herself. Before I left Savannah, I did something desperate. I was broke, scared, and tired of running. I thought if I took something that belonged to him, proof of what he was doing, I could use it to buy my way out. Eleanor's heart pounded. You mean you stole from Lang? Alana nodded. Documents, transfers, photos. Things that proved what he was doing to women at the foundation. I thought I could blackmail him, force him to leave me alone. But I never sent it. I couldn't. And then someone broke into my apartment. I ran and didn't stop until I got here. Eleanor stepped back, her mind spinning. You brought those files into my house. That's why he found you. Tears welled in Alana's eyes. I didn't mean for you to get involved. I just needed a job, a safe place to disappear. Eleanor's voice cracked. You put my family in danger. Alana flinched. You said you didn't want to drag anyone else down. Well, now's your chance to prove it. Alana's eyes filled with tears. Eleanor. Please, Eleanor said, voice trembling. Before I say something I can't take back. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Alana picked up her bag, the same worn leather one she'd arrived with, and walked to the door. She paused, her hand on the knob. You were the first person in years who looked at me and saw more than what I'd done. I hope someday you can forgive me for not being the person you needed me to be. Eleanor said nothing. The door closed behind her with a soft, final click. The mansion fell quiet again, emptier than it had ever been. Hours passed. The twins asked where Alana was, and Eleanor couldn't find the words. She sat by the window as the sun began to set, watching the driveway like she was waiting for a miracle she didn't deserve. Her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. You were right to let her go. Some things can't be undone. Eleanor stared at it, her heart sinking. Then another message followed, and this one chilled her to the bone. You should check your husband's old files. Look for the name Denise Lang. Her breath caught. She opened her laptop, heart hammering, and searched the archives. There it was. A legal document she'd never seen before, a birth record, sealed under court order, dated 26 years ago. Her husband's signature. Gareth Lang's name as witness. And the mother's name, written in faded ink. Denise Lang. Eleanor read the line twice before she could breathe. The child's name, Alana Denise Lang. Her throat tightened. The truth hit like lightning. Alana wasn't just some random victim. She was his daughter, Gareth Lang's own child, the one Denise had tried to protect all those years ago. And now Eleanor had sent her away into the very world she'd been running from. She pressed her hands to her face, tears falling freely. Oh God, what have I done? Outside, headlights flashed at the end of the long driveway. A single black car idling near the gate. Eleanor's fear returned all at once, fierce and cold. She grabbed her phone, whispering, Alana, please answer. But the line rang and rang until the sound became unbearable. And somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled again. Rain streaked the windows in long silver lines as Eleanor tore through the mansion's old study, her hands trembling over the keyboard. Every file she opened revealed another piece of a puzzle that had been hiding in plain sight for decades. A foundation built not on charity, but on blackmail, stolen identities, and coercion. And at the center of it all was Gareth Lang. He'd built his empire by breaking women. And Alana's mother, Denise, had tried to expose him before she disappeared. Eleanor's heart pounded as she pieced it together. The sealed record, the whispered name, the way Alana's face had seemed hauntingly familiar the first day she arrived. She wasn't just Garrett's daughter. She was the evidence he'd tried to bury. The realization hit like fire. Eleanor grabbed her coat and keys. The twins called after her from the stairwell. Grandma, where are you going? She forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'll be back soon, my loves. Lock the doors. Don't open for anyone but the police. She left before they could ask more. Outside, the night was drenched in stormlight. Eleanor's tires hissed against the wet pavement as she drove down the long, winding road toward town. Her phone rang halfway down the hill. It was Detective Ruiz, the one officer who'd believed her story about the break-in. Mrs. Wynne, Ruiz said, his tone urgent. We found something in Lang's financials. Offshore accounts linked to a property outside Haddon Creek. Does the name Cedar Hollow mean anything to you? Eleanor gripped the wheel tighter. It's where he used to take meetings, the estate by the river. then you might want to stay put. We're heading there now. I can't, she said, accelerating. He has Alana. Ruiz swore under his breath. Mrs. Wynne, if you go there alone. But she'd already hung up. The drive blurred into a storm of memory and guilt. She saw Alana's eyes that night at the kitchen counter, the mix of shame and hope, and heard her own voice breaking when she told her to leave. She had sent that girl out into a world still ruled by the man who had destroyed them both. What would you have done? Eleanor whispered into the empty car. If it were your child. The road narrowed into gravel as she neared the gates of Cedar Hollow. The lights from the main house glowed faintly through the trees. Her pulse quickened as she parked by the side gate and crept through the rain. Inside, the house was alive with noise, low voices, movement. She recognized one instantly. Gareth Lang. Find her, he was saying sharply. She couldn't have gone far. Eleanor pressed herself against the wall, heart thundering. Another voice, colder, familiar, replied. She came here, sir. Said she wanted to talk. We've been searching the grounds. Alana. She was here. Eleanor moved down the hallway, her shoes silent on the old wooden floors. She reached the end of the corridor, where the faintest sob carried through an open doorway. Alana, she whispered. A figure stirred in the shadows. Mrs. Wynne. Eleanor crossed the room in seconds and pulled her into a fierce hug. Thank God. Are you hurt? Alana shook her head. I came here to end this. He said he'd stop coming after us if I turned myself in. Eleanor pulled back, her eyes blazing. You don't bargain with devils. You expose them. But you said. I was wrong. Eleanor said, voice breaking. You were never the danger. He was. Footsteps echoed down the hall. Gareth Lang's voice grew louder, closer. She's here somewhere. Eleanor grabbed Alana's hand. We go out the back. Now. They slipped through the side corridor and into the greenhouse, a vast glass room filled with overgrown plants dripping from the rain. The storm outside lit the space in flashes of white light. Eleanor, Garrett's voice boomed from the doorway. You never could leave things buried, could you? Eleanor turned, shielding Alana behind her. You took everything from her mother. You won't take her too. He smirked, the same confident expression that had once charmed donors and senators alike. You think anyone will believe you now? You're a widow chasing ghosts. She's a runaway with a record. The world won't care. Eleanor lifted her phone. Maybe not. But they'll care about the live stream that started 10 minutes ago. Gareth froze. What? Detective Ruiz has been listening this whole time, Eleanor said. Every word you've said since you opened that door. The silence that followed was thunderous. Then, somewhere in the distance, sirens began to wail, faint at first, then growing louder. Gareth's face darkened. You've made a mistake. Eleanor took a step forward, her voice steady. No, I finally made the right choice. The door burst open behind him. Flashlights. Uniforms. Commands shouted over the storm. Within seconds, Gareth Lang was surrounded, his hands raised, his expression shifting from fury to disbelief. Alana stood motionless, watching as the man who'd haunted her whole life was led away in cuffs. When the last car pulled out of the driveway, she turned to Eleanor, tears streaming freely. Why did you come for me? Eleanor smiled through her own tears. Because I finally realized something. You weren't just someone I hired to clean my house. You were the reason it became a home again. Alana stepped into her arms and held her tight. The greenhouse filled with the sound of rain on glass, and for the first time in years, the storm didn't feel like an ending. It felt like release. The morning sunlight poured over the garden like a benediction, warming the ivy walls and glinting off the fountain where the twins played with toy boats. The world outside the Wynne estate had changed overnight. News vans had lined the gates since dawn. Headlines screamed the same words. Philanthropist Gareth Lang arrested in massive charity fraud and abuse scandal. For Eleanor, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like relief, quiet, profound, and tinged with grief for all the years lost to silence. She stood by the window of her study, watching the twins chase one another through the grass, their laughter rising like music. Behind her, the door creaked open softly. Alana stepped in. She looked different, not broken anymore, not running. There was steadiness in her now. She wore jeans and a loose white blouse, her curls falling freely over her shoulders. They said on the news he's been denied bail, Alana said quietly. Eleanor nodded. He'll face trial. and the women he hurt will finally be heard. Alana hesitated before crossing the room. I still can't believe it's over. Eleanor turned toward her. It isn't over. Not for you. You still have to decide what comes next. Alana smiled faintly. I was thinking about that. Detective Ruiz said they'll need witnesses for the case. I want to testify. For my mother. Eleanor's throat tightened. She'd be proud of you. I hope so, Alana said. Then, after a pause, and after that, maybe I'll go back to school. Study social work. Help girls who've been through what I have. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. You'll be incredible at it. A silence passed between them. Comfortable, full of unspoken understanding. Alana glanced toward the window. The twins keep asking when they'll see you. Eleanor smiled softly. They're not mine to keep forever. But I'll never stop being there when they need me. Alana shook her head, smiling through tears. You're family to us now, Mrs. Wen. Eleanor, she corrected gently. Please, call me Eleanor. They both laughed, a sound that felt like fresh air after months underground. Later that day, when the reporters finally left and the gates were quiet, Eleanor and Alana sat on the back porch with lemonade and silence. The sunset turned the sky to molten gold, and the twins' giggles floated through the air as they ran barefoot in the grass. Eleanor looked out across the yard and spoke quietly, almost to herself. I spent most of my life thinking money could buy peace. But the only peace I've ever known came from doing the right thing, no matter how late. Alana nodded. Sometimes we don't get to choose when healing starts. We just have to show up when it finally does. Eleanor turned to her. You remind me so much of your mother. The way you hold your head when you're thinking, the way your voice softens when you talk about helping people. Alana blinked, surprised. You knew her? Eleanor smiled faintly. Not well, but enough to know she was brave. She came to me once, years ago, asking for help with something she couldn't say out loud. I was too afraid back then to listen. I think, in some way, God sent you back to give me another chance to do what I couldn't then. Alana's eyes shimmered. Then I guess we both got another chance. For a long time, neither spoke. The day slipped toward dusk, the garden bathed in the last amber light. The twins came running up the steps, breathless and laughing. Grandma Ellie, can we stay up late tonight? Eleanor smiled and brushed a strand of hair from the girl's face. Just this once. They cheered and darted back across the lawn, their joy echoing through the quiet evening. Alana watched them go, her voice barely above a whisper. They're lucky, you know, to grow up around someone like you. Eleanor turned to her. No, my dear. I'm the lucky one. They, and you, reminded me that love isn't something we lose with time. It's something we relearn, if we're brave enough to try. The porch light flickered on. The world was still and soft again. In the distance, the town's church bell rang the hour, a sound both ordinary and sacred. Eleanor reached for Alana's hand, their fingers intertwining like two threads finally meeting in the same pattern after years apart. Let's go inside, Eleanor said. We have a future to plan. Alana smiled, her eyes glistening in the warm light. Together? Eleanor nodded. Always. The two women walked back into the house, laughter following them as the twins chased each other up the hall. Outside, the last of the storm clouds faded into pale blue twilight. The garden that had once been a place of fear now shimmered with renewal. And for the first time in a very long time, the old mansion felt alive, not with wealth or grandeur, but with love. My beautiful family and friends, family isn't always written in blood. Sometimes it's written in forgiveness. We spend so much of our lives protecting our pride, our comfort, or our secrets that we forget healing doesn't happen in silence. It happens when we choose to show up for someone else, even when we're afraid. Eleanor and Alana taught us that redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about facing it with courage and turning pain into purpose. So here's a question for you, my amazing family, and I want you to really think about it before you comment below. If life handed you a second chance to make something right, would you take it, even if it cost you everything you thought you had to protect? Thank you for watching this story today. If it touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe, share it with someone who needs hope tonight, and let me know in the comments what lesson you're taking home. Until next time, stay kind, stay strong, and never stop believing in second chances.
Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this one, then you'll absolutely love the next. It's even crazier and more captivating than you can imagine. So go ahead and click the video showing right here on your screen, and I'll see you in the next story.